Welcome to a short preview of this ScreencastsOnline video tutorial.
This week we will take a look at an incredible utility that turns your touchpad, mouse, or keyboard into a Mac automation launcher called BetterTouchTool by Follevora.ai software. Now, we've covered other Mac automation utilities in the past, like Keyboard Maestro, where things that might take many steps could be run by clicking an icon or other triggers. BetterTouchTool is unique in that it is designed to take the surface of your Magic Trackpad and make it a multi-key automation solution that you can customize and use to do any number of things, from screen layout to launching applications and other processes. In this screencast, I will give you an overview of the application and show some automations that you might want to include on your own Mac. So let's get started with the installation and setup of BetterTouchTool. So here we are over on the Follevora.ai website, and this is for BetterTouchTool. It is an application that you need to download from the website. There is not a Mac App Store version. But when you look at the website here, you get an idea of all the different input devices that you can use with BetterTouchTool. Things like trackpads and mice, as well as touch bar customization if you've got a Mac with a touch bar, Siri and Apple remote customization, as well as other keyboard shortcuts and even an iOS application that will allow you to trigger the different automations that you've got. So it really is a great application that covers a lot of different things. There is a generous 45-day download trial that you can use, so you can trial this for a while. And then if you ever get to the place of wanting to buy a license, you can either buy the standard license for $6.50, or you can buy a lifetime license for $20, which in essence gives you all of the updates to the application going forward. And then it's also available through the Set App subscription as well if you want to get it that way. So there's a number of different ways that you can get the application. And so as you'll see, it is a really valuable utility. So I've already downloaded it. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put this down, and let's go ahead and launch the application for the first time. And we'll go ahead and say open. And it gives the privacy statement. And so we're going to just say continue. And we'll allow crash reports. And so these are the permissions. And so BetterTouchTool does need permission to security and privacy. And so if we just go ahead and open System Preferences here, we're going to come into this. And all we're going to need to do is authenticate. And once we've done that, we click on Unlock. And then we just want to check BetterTouchTool here so that we know it's in good shape. And as you can see, it's now ready to use. And so we'll say start using it and open preferences. We'll go ahead and close this window down. And there we go. There's the BetterTouchTool interface. And as you can see, it shows us that we are using the trial version. And from here, we can either load a license or get a free license or continue the trial. And so in our case, we're just going to go ahead and continue the trial and move forward. So here we are in the preferences area of BetterTouchTool, and so this is the main screen where we'll do all of our configuring. So let's just take a look at the interface. You can see across the top here we've got a simple mode, and we also have an advanced mode. And so if I just click on advanced, you'll see that the settings changes here, and we've added a mouse and trackpad area over here. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, so let's just stay in simple mode for right now. We have our gestures right here, which is what we'll be developing. We also have basic settings that we can click on that give us things that we can customize within BetterTouchTool, such as sensitivity to the mouse or the trackpad and that sort of thing. Let me just go back to gestures here. And then across the top, we have access to documents, which is the help manual, usage as well, which this just gives us a diagram of how our usage has saved us time and how much we've used it. We've got an about area that tells us about the software and where to buy a license and all that. And then we've got a news area, which will connect us to the website and show us any new news that might be happening through the blog there. So I'm just going to go back to gestures to come back here. Now you'll notice right underneath that we have what's called the tab bar, and this contains all of the items that I might want to use to configure any triggers that I have for automation. And so you can see all of the different things that it affects. You can use the remote, which is an iOS application. You can use Magic Mice, trackpads, keyboard, drawings. You can actually do drawings on your touch surface of your trackpad. Normal mice, Siri remote, and so that would be your Apple TV remote. as well as the touch bar if you have one, and then other, which is just an area that says anything that's not a device, we can still customize things. And then over here with this arrow, I'll just click on it to show you, it's an Apple Remote Legacy support for the old Apple Remote.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from ScreencastsOnline. ScreencastsOnline is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only ScreencastsOnline Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital ScreencastsOnline monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a ScreencastsOnline member.